it's just a clarity message, really. It's just a message that's super clear. Like you hear something different in a different way. It's like you almost have a third ear. There's a knowingness to the thought. At that time in my life, I owned and ran a really beautiful holistic health center at 18 staff, and we were going for it. It was amazing. We were booked solid and 12 hours a day, and all that stuff was great. There was no room in my world for even thinking media or publication or what have you. And then I just guess I never took it off my list. And then I had a very clear, defined moment about creating a media company. Like I literally woke up and was told to start a podcast. And this was years ago. I didn't even know what one was. I was like, what are you talking about? And so I've had those clarity messages where you just know you need to act on them. I always say I don't always do what I'm told, but there's times where it was just a clarity message and it felt right. Like it was just the time to do it.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of To Hum is Human, the podcast where we explore the transformative power of tuning into our intuition to express our passionate purpose. I'm your host, Donnabelle, and I'm so happy you are joining us today. We'll be diving into living with purpose, intuition as your guide to a meaningful life, something my next guest knows firsthand. Deb Drummond is a self-starter, bright, focused, and innovative. She walks her talk, is spiritually inclined, and only gets involved if she believes in something. The moment you meet Deb, you know something special is going on. She lives with the thought that each person she meets is valuable. She is warm, approachable, and quietly professional. Deb is a pioneer in the world of entrepreneurship and was one of the first in her country to create companies in the health and wellness sector. And to date, she has built 7 international companies and inspired thousands around the globe. Deb has been recognized in Success Magazine 48 times and has been given many nominations and has won numerous awards for her accolades in her personal and business achievements. And some of Deb's projects include the Show Up, Stand Up, Speak Up, Yes You movement. She is also the founder of Mission Accepted Media, the Mission Accepted podcast, and the book Mission Accepted 262 Women Creatives, Entrepreneurs, and Media. The fabulous Deb lives in beautiful Vancouver, Canada. She is the mother of her 2 favorite people, her daughter Chloe and her son Ocean. And with her new title of Yaya, she gets to add to that favorite list her beautiful grandchildren, Brinley and Cashton. Welcome, Deb.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. It is going to be so fun to be here with you today. I mean, I love it. To hum is human. Sign me up.
Well, I thought of you first thing when I was just thinking about creatives because you are so passionate about living a creative life. And if you could take us back to the beginning, what sparked this creativity in you? Did you grow up in a creative household or were you encouraged to just make things and build things as a child?
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't say that my house was full of creatives. I definitely would say that I was the black sheep if, we were to say that. People like, what are you doing? People call me a professional hippie. And I live like a hippie. I think like a hippie, but I do have, this kind of Rubik Cube's brain that likes to take creativity and put it into formulation, which is why I build companies. Like to me, it's a creative process. But the first time, I guess, if I was to say that I experienced confirmation of how I thought or how I lived, maybe I was 14 years old. I always had a record player. We always had record player and vinyls in my home. And I always had a record player in my bedroom. I still have a record player. I raised my kids on vinyl. Even when it wasn't cool, it's back to trend now, right? But
Oh
even
my
when it
gosh,
wasn't
yes.
cool. So I remember going into the living room and grabbing an album called Pearl. I took it into my bedroom and put it on, and it's Janis Joplin. Honestly, it was like I could breathe. I could breathe. And so my first creative love was definitely music. I had a natural aptitude for art. I used to just draw pictures. My art teacher used to walk by and just put an A on the picture when I just started. So I always had that ability to be creative. And I think I saw things from that spectrum. I had maybe my first spiritual download when I was 8, and it kind of freaked me out. And I didn't know what it was, and I didn't really like it. And so in my 20s, it kind of came back and I was a little better with it. And then it certainly grew into a part of who I was. But yeah, I would say it was music was my first creative love.
There's so much in music that just moves you both
Mhm.
physically and emotionally. I can see how you're tapping into that energy to bring out other aspects of your life. When you say black sheep, I'll probably say I was a black sheep too. And essentially what that means is you were just thinking outside of the norm. I love that. I absolutely love that. So your work is rooted in purpose and passion. How did you find clarity on what that purpose was for you?
Wow. The project that I'm in right now, this big 262 movement that's kind of globally sweeping, really came to me as a bit of a download. And I know that you understand what that is. When I was
Yes. Well, for
31.
for our
Yeah.
listeners who may not necessarily know what that is, if you could explain
Yeah,
that.
it's just a clarity message, really. It's just a message that's super clear. Like you hear something different in a different way. It's like you almost have a third ear. Like there's a knowingness to the thought. It's like, oh, I'm gonna do one of these one day. I mean, I went to the bookstore to get my planner that I got every year called the Women's Day Book, and it went out of print. And I was frustrated, and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna make one of these one day. Made no sense whatsoever because at that time in my life, I owned and ran a really beautiful holistic health center. We had 18 staff, and we were going for it. It was amazing. We were booked solid and 12 hours a day and blah, blah, blah. And all of this stuff was great. There was no room in my world for even thinking media or publication or what have you. And then I just guess I never took it off my list. I don't know what that means. And then I had a very clear, defined moment about creating a media company. Like I literally woke up and was told to start a podcast. And this was years ago. I didn't even know what one was. I was like, what are you talking about? And so I've had those clarity messages where you just know you need to act on them. I always say I don't always do what I'm told, but there's times where it was just a clarity message and it felt right. Like it was just the time to do it. And that's what this project's all about. For me, my experience, maybe not for everybody, but the clarity as you start to get in and you stay with the project or stay with the movement or stay with what you're doing, it evolves and you have choices, which is why my show is called Mission Accepted. Because just because you were given a mission doesn't mean you need to stay on it, doesn't mean you need to take the next mission, doesn't mean you need to evolve with it. You can stop. I don't know why my brain doesn't understand that, but it seems to like just continue to evolve. But I think that is the life of a creative. I think that really is the difference between, there's people that are creative and there's people that are entrepreneurs. I have very good friends of mine that are entrepreneurs, and they're like, I don't understand how you think. And I go, because my son is an artist and my son paints all sorts of different types of pictures. And no one says to him, wow, you should stop painting different types of pictures. They're like, it's cool. You do landscape, you do tattoo style, you do this. But when it comes to an entrepreneur, they're like, wow, like you just keep adding things on. That is the life of a creative. We
Yes.
don't really have an off button. People are like, oh, when are you going to retire? I'm like, I don't know, when they throw dirt on the box. Like, I mean, do we have a choice? I mean, I think that's kind of the question. Like, people are like, why do you do it? I'm like, I wish I had a choice. It just wakes up. Sometimes it wakes up before I do. I used to say that, like, oh my goodness, my brain wakes up before I do.
And it's
Mhm.
something about the true creative just inspires other people to start creating too. I think having that aspect
Let's join.
within yourself.
Oh my gosh, Jonabelle, I have to tell you. So I did a podcast last week, and it was for people that were creatives, people in creative and people in media. There was 4 of us. By the end of the podcast, we were all thinking about doing a book together. And then I said, stop it, all of us, stop it right now. This is what happens when you get creatives in the room. Go home, get off my screen.
It's true. I mean, creativity just brings out creativity, and I
Yeah.
love that. Now, as a woman entrepreneur, were there specific challenges that you've seen women face in entrepreneurship? And have you built
Girl,
support into your work to help them rise, which I mentioned?
I mean, I've been entrepreneuring for over 33 years. So just being an entrepreneur in the beginning, I remember one of my family members telling my daughter when she went over for a sleepover, she said, well, when I had my last child, I chose to be a good mom and, give up her business. So when my daughter came home and told me, I called my family member and I'm like, that will literally be the last time my daughter stays at your house. So let's just get really clear on that. So that was that. So I've had that. And then I've had you go to the bank and they're like, oh, what do you want? What do you want it for? And you can tell they're looking for someone else to be in the meeting with me. And I'm like, oh, by the way, I make more than he does. So let's not have that conversation. So then I had a women bank manager. And so we could have real conversations. And she put me in touch with someone who helps with finance, who was a woman. And I found like I was not like, and I'm the person, I hire the best for the job. Like seriously, there's men, like I'm like, I hang out with women and people that support women. So I'm hoping that's everybody. But if it's not, then cool dudes, right? So for me, in the beginning, it was really more important than maybe even so now to hang out with women that understood business and what we were trying to do, because there was no women's networking groups to go to when I started. None. Not a women's organization, not a foundation. So they were in my house Sunday at 2, bring your kids. Everyone paid $2 and that fed everybody. I mean, without making me sound like I'm 80, if it's not there, just build it. And then it has been that for sure. I think that it's real. It's not something that it doesn't experience. I talk to women all day, things that they've experienced. I remember when I first went to my board of trade, like there's these, there's Chamber of Commerce's, and then where I am, there's this, big board of trade, and they're like the pinnacle of all, Chamber of Commerce's. And I went like maybe 25 years ago, something like that, 20 something years ago. And I remember walking in and, shaking someone's hand, and they were in a suit. And the first thing out of their mouth is like, you should join one of the committees. And I was like, this isn't a Tupperware party. You know what I mean? And now I love Tupperware. No offense to Tupperware. But I was just like, would you have said that in the first 3 seconds of meeting somebody if I wasn't a woman? I don't know. We don't know. But when you're not hitting grade. Now, right. I was a woman with a successful aromatherapy company 25 years ago. I didn't get a whole lot of respect.
Pioneer.
Yeah,
you
now
were a
I
pioneer
do.
back
Or,
then.
you start to make awards or whatever, and people are like, oh, you go,
Mhm.
So it can be also that if you're a successful woman in business, it can be intimidating. You come up against that. Some of my colleagues go up against that. So there's all sorts of things that can happen. It's just learning that posture and learning how to overcome that. And then there's just some stuff that's real that you just have to deal with.
Right. Right. So for you, is success more about impact, freedom, financial growth, or is it something else entirely? How would you define success?
So success has many components. You just mentioned 3 of them.
Mhm.
Success, I guess, for me is really when I wake up in the morning. And look, if some people wake up and they've been doing the kind of projects that we're doing and say they're not tired, they're not telling the truth, right?
Right.
So just, you don't take on global impact and go, I get to check out at 5 o'clock. That's not how it works. So particularly when you go international, you're like, it's 9 o'clock at night and you're just waking up. Let's talk. So as I think success for me is that I don't fight what I need to do. Success for me is I wake up no matter how I feel, happy if I'm exhilarated, if I'm this, I'm that. I'm on purpose. I know I'm on purpose. There's a meaning. I don't not want to be sitting on this podcast with you talking about it. So there's an inner knowingness that I'm doing the right thing. And then you get these incredible confirmations, like mind-blowing confirmations. For me right now, it's like one of the women who came into our 262 family maybe 2 years ago. She'd been working with the United Nations for 40 years in groups and organizations. Her name's Kathy Holt, and she's a rock star. And she wanted to have her own business as well. She's a woman in leadership. She's been doing this. And so she came speaking and started to build a community and build people that knew her. And then she came to the Emmys with us when we handed out this incredible book of 262 women. And then it was like, she was talking about this book she had inside her. So I'm like, Heather, who's the organizer, I'm like, call her over. I'm like, let's do it. And she's like, if you can have your book done in 90 days, you can be back. You can be back we were at the Emmys. She said, you can be back at the Oscars with your own table. She's like, seriously? I'm like, go, Birdie, go. Then we cheer her on. I get tingles when I think about how that woman evolved in like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And so those things is what feels like this is a success to me. it also has to take care of me. It also has to take care of my family. I rant and rave about let's create a sustainable world because sustainability is a form of empowerment. If I can create platforms where women and those that support women, so, I have men that are clients. I have men that advertise and sponsor and want to have TV. We just launched a TV channel, right? If they want a TV show, they can do that. So as long as their heart's in the right place, they're welcome where we are. And so creating those, I tell people, I'm going to help you get the right exposure so your business is sustainable. Well, we need to be sustainable as well. So we need to walk that walk and talk that talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
So,
I mean, obviously, transformation for yourself, but for your client as well,
mhm.
sounds like the main impetus behind a lot of what you do. There's definitely this impact. And I'm curious, was there a moment that you can recall where everything changed for you? I don't imagine you play anything safe, but was there a time in your life where you had to choose between playing it safe or following your calling?
I've been an entrepreneur since I was in my 20s. So, in terms of what a lot of times people consider safe would be, I mean, I've had two babies. Man, I would have loved to have mat leave. I don't know what sick days feel like paid sick days or paid holiday pay or medical or dental or any of that stuff. I never chose that path from an early stage. So I never left safety for safety. I've had beautiful businesses that I've built that have shifted and converted into other businesses. And that fear of letting something go that you love for something else that you love was a really tough one. When I let go, I had a private health studio. I talked about it, and I walked in and all of us were intuitives and all of us did healing and crystals and aromatherapy. And I listened to meditation music all day. And I worked on, 5 or 6 clients, and it was satisfying and it was soulful. And then when I got the massive nudge and the world was shifting and we had to shift and going into this other role of leading large teams globally and sharing about brain products and all of that, that was a really difficult, I remember crying on the couch on that one. I remember coming home and going into the shower with my clothes on and lying on the couch and calling a friend of mine who was a major CEO. And I called him. I'm like, I don't feel good. He goes, where are you? And I said, I just packed up the business tonight. He said, don't move. I said, I won't. And he came over and he's like, okay, I know what it's like to wrap a business up. Even though you love it, even though parts of it worked, the calling to go to the next one was really loud. So I've gone through that.
Yeah,
I've
that's
gone
a
through
big.
that. Even right now, we just launched a television channel.
I
Annabelle,
know. What
Annabelle, I
what
used
are
to
you
work,
not doing?
I used to work at Denny's graveyard shift for 365 an hour. Like
Wow.
this is, even I'm like, what the heck am I doing? And of course I had goblins and, going in my ear. Oh my gosh, are we going to make it? Are we not going to make it? Da, 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 da. And then you need that external sometimes for someone to go, you've made it so far. You know what I mean? You're going to be fine. And you're going to be fine because you put yourself through this kind of test before. But I'm like, please tell me there's no bigger there's no bigger ones than this, unless Branson's like, hey, you want to like start another plane company or something? You know what I mean?
Oh,
You don't know where things are going to go, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
yeah. Well, you mentioned your CEO colleague when you're closing your first business. Like, who do you lean on or learn from when you need encouragement or perspective or, something that you can let our listeners know too?
Yeah. Look, I am fully transparent in this. And I don't say this because I'm a coach, right? But people go, how did you go from there to here? Right. First of all, I didn't exit stage left. There's times where I did rice and peas or steak and lobster. There's times where it was super tight. But I got to where I am by coaches, experts, therapists, counselors. When you need outside advice. And for me, being a solopreneur, I want to have someone in it with me. I was talking to a woman this morning who's hiring me to work with her in what she does. Very well established, very well curated, has all the pieces together, right? But it doesn't matter how much you have it together. There's something about someone else's observation and someone that you align with that can take you to the next place with grace, right? There's people that, like, I talked to a woman early this morning, talking about time zones, who's at the very beginning of her business. And she's like, I see entrepreneurs and I see them struggle and I don't want to struggle. And I'm like, okay, well then let's do the infrastructure that most, entrepreneurs don't do, including when I started my first business. My first business plan was a 8.5 piece of paper. How many massages do I need to do to pay the rent? I mean, really, that's what it was, right? Like, ooh, it took me 3 minutes. I really truly believe that it's coaching. And then at a time where you've been in business as long as I am, you're calling in an expert. I called a really cool colleague that I have high level respect for, and we could probably coach each other. Like we're pretty par. So I called her and I said, we're launching the TV and we're stepping into some uncharted territory. I mean, 99% of it's pretty charted because I've done lots of stuff before. But I said, I just want someone I can blow off steam to. I want someone that I can navigate with. I want someone that I'm going to throw things at. I'm only looking for that 2%. I mean, I'm a top performance coach, right? So I live in the 1 to 3%. I'm like, I just want to know. She's like, yeah, no problem. Like friend to friend. I said, no, I'm going to hire you. She goes, you don't need to hire me. And I said, yeah, I want to hire you. She goes, you're going to hire me to be your business friend? I said, you're going to be my business best friend just for this little phase so that I can just formulate and have someone to talk to. She's like, sure, if you want to pay me. I'm like, yeah, I do. Even at the stage that I am where I coach, and everything in between, high level, people starting, whatever. It's always good to have a friend, a colleague, someone you trust that is giving you the right advice, that you have faith in, that they're going to take you to that next phase. Honestly, it has been like that for me. And I also think great coaches always have a coach on the side, either you're activating them a lot or a little. I think as you start to move into number of companies or whatever, you probably don't need it as much. You need more specialized. But I don't know. I mean, when my son did his business plan, he's 21, he started at 15, launched at 19. My girlfriend, my CFO, happened to be his CFO. I mean, who starts off their business with a CFO? Not too many people. But in there is now when you do your expenses for a business and when you're relooking at your expenses, please put coaching. It's got to be a line on your expenses, because it's going to save you expenses on so many other things. I've put myself to test. Like when I say rice and peas, I mean rice and peas, to access expert information to make the right decisions.
Well, and you need also someone to help you just have the vision outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you're so in it, like you really need to have someone as your other eyes, because hard to see in other ways. But please, could you tell us a little bit about Mission Accepted 262 Women Creatives? I love this project. Can you just tell us more about that?
Yeah, so 262 is a global movement for women and those that support women. It started off creating an incredible book, a book that was meant to be a book where women could stand up, speak up, and show up. That's been my mission for every 7 companies that I've built, and it was time to actualize it. And so it's an incredible book that kind of like when you open up a magazine, it's this beautiful full cover spread of each woman. The women are self-funded. So whether we have a, 5-time Emmy Award winner, she's great. She's done 5 Emmys now. She's like every other entrepreneur looking for her 6th. Whether you do coaching there's so many cool women in the book, like people that do coaching and artists and authors and speakers and actors and people in the sports and medical and all sorts of different professions. And when you open up the book, there's this page where they tell you a bit about who they were, something they overcame, something that's important to them. I wrote that music's my therapist. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's how people like, how do you make it? I go, a lot of music. And so I wrote something personal so that it draws you closer to who that person is. I mean, you got to hum as human. Here's the human side. And then on this side, it says, stand up, speak up, and show up. Now, what do you do and why do you do it? And then invite me to have a virtual coffee. Just, I don't need 45 social media handles. Just give me one place I can find you. And then a beautiful picture of black and white. We don't do headshots. This is not a, directory of people. This is, you get a sense of someone as, and then there's a 2-word directive on the bottom right-hand corner. It could be, hum more. It could be speak up. It could be, one woman's got eat pizza, celebrate life. So it's a flip book that tells you, even if you just open it up during the day. So I said, I wanted to do a 5-year book tour. And my publicist was like, what are you doing? That's fiscal suicide. I said, no, it's not. It's 262 women that need to be seen, need to be heard, and need to be read. And this book is going to go around the world, and it started a movement. A year later, we started putting summits together because I got a download, that clear message after watching a show on TV called Seeing Allred, which is Gloria Allred's life story. I got a download, and the download said, you need to create an accessible and global project for women. And I'm like, well, I hate to tell you, I'm doing a book of 262 women. I'm not quite sure what else you want me to do, because that was a download. I had no idea of doing 262 women, but that came to me after a meditation. And then I heard a message: International Women's Day has become a Facebook posting day, and you need to get women to honor it like a mom does Mother's Day. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? So how do I get women to embody the essence of International Women's Day? I said, I guess it's repetition. And so we created summits every time zone in the world, from morning to night, on the 8th day of the month, from March 2023 to May 11th, 2024. We did 22 summits in 15 months, 440 speakers, and 6,000 women showed up to hear them. So it created a movement. So, at that point, you say, how come you keep going? Well, sometimes you create so much stuff that you can't step away. So then we launched this book, and I said, let's launch this book with 50 pages not taken. And my team's like, what are you doing? And I said, we're doing 5 years. We're going to meet women that want to be in the book. We're going to meet women we want in the book. And so we closed the book. We put women of history on those pages so women could go back and respect some of the women that laid track for us. And then we went to market, and I can't even tell you how big the book hit. And then we started doing these tours like Ireland and Vancouver and Texas and LA and Emmys and Oscars. And then the time came where I said, let's open the book for a revision. And then we will close it, and we will be heading to the Emmys September 2025 in LA. And we are going to be putting a red bow in this book, and it's going to be complete and filled. Actually, this morning we had 12 spots. Now we have 11, because I just had a call before this. And so we're super excited to have 262 women live and represented, because some of the women of history were no longer with us. And then that kicks off speaking. We always will have 220 speaking spots a year. And then all the women that speak on the summit, we will take their episode and make a beautiful curated episode. And we will now gift you by moving that over to our women's channel, where you will be seen by 250 to 300 million people.
Oh my gosh.
If you've got something to share, if you've got a message that want to be heard, because it can be tough as an entrepreneur. I mean, let's face it. It is tough as an entrepreneur to be able to not only be passionate about what you do, fund what you do, find clients, continue to market. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't like to let go of every aspect. So we're like, just step in and let us help you have exposure so people can come to you for what you do. So literally, as someone who's been on the stage many times, I put myself behind the curtain and help people platform so they get seen. And that's a big part of when you said, what do you consider success? For me, it's when I see that women like Kathy Holt that I told you is rocking her world, and anything that I can give access to, including someone's like, I'd like to have my own TV show on your channel. You're like, yeah, you do. And let me tell you why. And let me help you. They're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like, that's perfect. You know what I mean? Like, what I didn't realize that she's a hormone specialist. I'm like, well, I didn't really expect you to know about TV. So let's just figure this out, right? And to be able to create accessible media. So, people can come onto our podcast, which is super big in media world, for $25, or they can come their own show for $5,000. These are not expensive prices. So we are an accessible media house, and that's the journey that can happen. So I don't know if it's a clear decision. Like I said, I don't know if you really get to say yes or no, because it just kind of keeps morphing. But I think we're pretty well hitting pinnacle with TV. I think we can stop and rest for a little bit.
Oh my goodness. Well, tell me about this channel, because I just found out about it, and I know you just recently had a podcast speaking about it. Where did this idea come from? Aside from a download, was it just literally the next step?
I said, the words came out of my mouth before I even knew I could formulate it, when I said, we're going to do this book, and then women are going to speak, and we're going to get them on TV. I've been saying it for a year and a half. And then it was the research. Sometimes you say things and then it gets figured out, right? Everything's figure outable. But I would say that it was an interesting journey, getting us to the right place with the right people for the right reasons. But I always knew that I wanted to offer that. So I talked it.
Yeah. Well, and it's a first of its kind, right? This is a women's channel in Canada. No other channel existed like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Canada. The women's channel is on a network that streams to, Roku, which is not Canadian, and Amazon and Apple. But yeah, there's definitely not another woman that has the women's channel in Canada that I know of.
That's incredible. So, if there is an entrepreneur, someone who's listening, who's sitting on a dream, but scared to take the leap, what is the first small step you would recommend?
Okay, well, let me really think about that. Well, sometimes people will say take a step, any step. I'm not sure I follow that philosophy. I would say for me, it would be make it real. So what is make it real for you? If make it real is to go tell someone, then tell someone. If make it real is write it on a piece of paper like what I did. When I meet with people, I'm like, can we do a business plan? And they're like, oh, that doesn't sound like fun. I'm like, 90 minutes. We can just do, let's do a business plan in 90 minutes. Someone else would say, maybe go research it to make it real. I think actualized it. And I'm not talking typing either. I'm like, get a piece of paper and pen. So good for your brain. You'll actually absorb yourself much more and really start writing it out, or grab a friend, a trusted friend, a friend that's going to push you and help you be like, not the friend that, this is what I say. You don't go to your bank manager and talk about your marriage,
No.
right? Because they don't know. I don't know. Go to somebody that's doing and living your dream. So if they're a active entrepreneur that's pushing themselves out of their comfort zone in activity, that's doing that, then talk to them. And don't say you're asking for their advice. Just say, I'm super excited. This is what I'm going to do. And I just want to make it real. You need to be really careful on who you share those with, because I've had people that say, oh my gosh, I wanted to do that, but my person or my husband or my brother or my wife or my mom or my this. Like, if you go to someone that doesn't understand finance, why would you go and ask them a financial question? So make sure you pick your first person right, but get it out of your head. If it's in your head, get it out of your head. Yeah, hit the computer, start researching, find someone that you really trust, right? That's going to help you through that journey. And then I live by something called Providence. I've had I've worked with a lot of clients over the years, and I've had a lot of staff and a lot of people that are friends and teach. And here's the thing, Providence will not come into play. There's a beautiful Scottish Himalayan proverb that talks about providence. It's long and lengthy. I'll save you the poem. But it basically says this: when you say yes, providence comes into play. It will not come into play until you say yes. And when you say yes, all unforeseen. So you could sit there all you want and try to figure this stuff out. Good luck. You can do a lot of things. You can make a business plan. You can research. You can do comparative analysis and competitive analysis. I made my son do all of that to teach him a business plan. And he just like, thanks, mom. So you got your data, but at the end of the day, move forward with faith, right? It is unforeseen, but your unforeseen support system, those people that are going to sit at that board table that you can't see, cannot come knocking at the door or throw us in each other's lives, or a book that you need to read, or something pop up, you know what I mean, on your screen. You're like, that's kind of weird, or whatever. Those things are going to stay unforeseen until you say yes and start to make movement. And then, if you're shy, like, look at my son was shy. I mean, shy, right? I'm like, well, you need to learn how to do some podcasts. His mom's in media. And he's like, I'm not doing podcasts. I'm like, yeah, darling, you are. So I found a specialist. I didn't want it to be me. I found a specialist who was a coach that worked with teenage kids that were shy. I mean, they're out there. And, now my son rattles off interviews and can go on TV after a year and a half. So you just make movement. But honestly, you'll never have a sure thing until you make it a sure thing.
I love that. Just make it real. I mean,
Make
that
it
sounds
real.
pretty simple, but when you think about it, it's like that's really what's sort of in the way. It's not real until you actually act
Yeah.
on it. In terms of your more spiritual, intuitive side, do you have something in your daily practice that keeps you grounded in all of this? Because there is so much going on. Is there something you do to help you be the channel, be conduit, but also stay grounded?
I think after this long of being a active spiritual being. It's the same thing as when I used to walk in. I mean, I did 30,000 clients. So, I used to teach massage. So I could walk in and flip, leave my stuff at the door and go into that kind of conduit channeling, whatever it was I was going to do that day. It was an automatic. I think the blessing of being someone who has been spiritually minded for a long time is that some of that is automated. I mean, I really do believe that I wake up, I have a knowingness. I don't question the messages. If someone cancels last minute, I don't get twisted up. Like I know that. So that's one of them. You practice long enough and you start to, know yourself. The second thing is I don't deviate from a very, very, very healthy food eating regime. For me, I made a decision a long time ago. Well, first of all, I got unwell in my 20s when I was working at a late night, dessert restaurant. Um, you know, and I've been gluten-free for over 30 years. Gluten, sugar, and dairy, I don't eat. And then I spend a lot of money, to be honest with you, on really, really good nutraceuticals. And people say to me, oh, you don't look your age, you don't act your age. So for me, keeping my body like a temple and treating it like the most important piece of real estate I own has been a strong conduit to my ability to still have the energy to do what I do. I know when I need to go have a conversation with God. I'm on the balcony. I'm like, okay, what's up? What's going on? I listen to music all the time. I listen to inspirational music. I listen to country music. I listen to rock music. I go to concerts. Music for me fills my soul, whatever fills your soul. I think sometimes I live in a meditative state. I'd love to say I meditate every day. I don't consciously meditate every day, but there's times where I do. So I think for me, it's an automatic at this point, but for sure, my diet is non-negotiable. The powerful nutraceuticals that I take, non-negotiable. Even when we're in steak, rice and peas, I don't vary on that. I'll have the same couch for 10 years if I need to. I mean, really, what's the deal? What's more important? So those are some of the things that I do.
Wow. It's obviously working. I'm in awe of all the work that you do because you have such a big heart. I love that you see that there's potential in everyone. Everyone has something to offer, and you live a life of impactful purpose. And it's just a beautiful way to witness your work and what you do. And I know listeners will have plenty to explore after hearing this segment. How do folks connect with you?
I just make it super easy. It's so funny when people are like, oh, your projects are so complex. And they're like, actually, it's pretty simplified. So my name is Deb Drummond, and they can go to debdrummond.com. There's contact buttons all over that, and it will actually go to my email. So the nice thing is it bypasses my team and goes to my email. If someone's like, oh my gosh, what was her website? You could probably find me by Googling me. You can go to Deb Drummond, and there'll be all sorts of ways to find me, or Deborah Drummond. So, I went from Deborah Drummond to Deb Drummond in my marketing, but either one, but debdrummond.com. But you can find me there.
Well, you are such an inspiration. And Deb
Yeah.
Drummond, I'm so thankful for you joining us today and just sharing your world, sharing your insight. And it's just an honor. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, well, me too. And for people that don't know, I mean, we shared in a book together. People get to read both our stories. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you better. I mean, I think that's the cool thing about doing something like that and then getting to know people that think like. I am really grateful to be on your show today. And I recognize that we all have a certain amount of time and a certain amount of people that we can do our shows with. I have one. So to be selected is just very cool. And it gives me a chance to get to know you more as well. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And truth be told, To Hum is Human, that was a download. I was told to do a podcast, and this is what I'm doing right now. And the book that we're both in is The Intuitive Entrepreneur, Deeper Connections for Soul-Driven Success. And we both have chapters, and that's our connection.
Yeah.
And I love that we did that together.
Me too.
Anyway, Deborah Drummond, thank you so much.
You're welcome, honey.
Thanks for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stayed with you or gave you a new way to look at things. That awareness, that pause, that's where things start to shift. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. You can learn more about my work and what's coming up at sonorouslight.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at To Hum is Human. Until next time, keep humming.